Ryan Day is pushing Ohio State's quarterbacks to showcase their toughness and leadership during spring practice.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your feel-good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. During today's show, we'll open up the mailbag to answer your questions, as well as discuss why Ohio State's quarterback competition is truly a three-man race. But first, Ryan Day understands what it takes to be a starting quarterback. He also knows what it looks like when he's out on a practice field to see a man that has what it takes and when he sees someone that doesn't. And the person that has what it takes has two qualities that jump off the field. They are tough and they're a leader. Will Howard was that. C.J. Stroud was that. Justin Fields was that. And I believe in this year, no matter who the starting quarterback is, they must display the toughness and leadership that Ryan Day needs the starting quarterback in Ohio State to display. And you can start doing that during spring practice. And spring practice isn't the start of you being able to showcase your toughness and your leadership. It's just a continuation of you doing that. If you were becoming a leader and starting to be a leader in winter workouts, that's going to continue. Well, we hope it continues. If you started that during spring practice, then the players and coaches are going to wonder, why is this coming out now and it wasn't coming out before? Were you a little reserved and a little afraid to come out of your shell? Or was this just the right time for it to come out? Or maybe you get on the field and this comes out when you're off the field, you're not the leader. Now, toughness is one of those things that sometimes you're not truly able to see it when you think someone has it. Yeah, you could look out there and see somebody walking down the street or someone on the football field moving around, and you may say, oh, that person's tough just by looking at them, but all of a sudden you see them on the field, you're like, oh, no, they're not tough. They back down from people. And that toughness part is very, very big because Will Howard wasn't playing a physically demanding position like a defensive end or even a running back like some guys do, but he had the toughness that was needed for Ohio State this year. And for Julian Sayin and Kienholz and Tavian St. Clair, all three of these guys have showcased leadership qualities throughout their football careers, or they wouldn't be at Ohio State. Yeah, talent alone can get you some scholarships. That's the big-time programs. But talent and leadership and also the toughness that is needed to be a high-caliber recruit and some of that is wanted by Ryan Day, that'll get you that Ohio State scholarship offer. And when you get that offer, that's just the start. That's not the end. The end is down the road. The end is something that I believe everyone wants to see the best. And the end for some of these guys is going to be wearing the scarlet and gray. For some of them, it won't be. But whoever it is that wins the QB1 battle in the fall, which I don't believe Ryan Day is going to announce the winner of that title until week 2 or 3 during fall camp, you got to be tough and you have to be a leader. And that goes for a lot of guys on the team. It isn't just a quarterback competition conversation. It's anybody. I mean, Larry Johnson has been open about challenging Keanu Jackson Jr. to be a leader, stepping up, a guy that hasn't started at all throughout his Buckeye career. All of a sudden, it's his time to be a consistent starter. It's his time to lead the room. It's his time to fill in and replace the shoes of Jack Sawyer and Jalen Tuimoloau. Think about some other guys, James Peoples. He can lead the room, but he's not the oldest guy. And think about what it's like for Jeremiah Smith, who's not the oldest guy in the room. Even some of his former teammates that were on his 7-on-7 team, those guys are older than he was. And when they're older than him, sometimes you might want to lean on the older guy. But Jeremiah Smith can showcase what it takes to be a leader this year and the kind of guy that Brian Hartline and Ryan Day and everybody else can look at and say, he's not just showing it with his play on the field. He's also doing it off the field. Maybe a little bit quieter at times, maybe a little bit louder at times, but no matter what it is, he's very, very bold in his actions. He's bold with the statements, and he's the kind of leader that Ohio State needs. The toughness thing goes without saying. If you're playing center, or defensive end or quarterback or safety. Any position out there, you got to be tough. I mean, physically tough, but also mentally tough. And the mental part is where a lot of guys don't make it. One thing I have realized over the past, I've thought about, not realized, but I thought about a lot this year, thinking about this quarterback competition. To get an offer from Ohio State, you have to be talented. You got to be able to make the throws. You have to be one of those guys in high school that was a dude. You have to be. Now, the difference comes in some guys are able to translate their game to this level of college football, and some guys aren't. Some guys, it takes them a little bit longer to be able to figure things out. Kyle McCord, in his lone year starting at Ohio State, he didn't figure it all out. That's not a problem. It just takes some guys a little bit longer to figure everything out. At Syracuse last year, was a phenomenal passer of the football. It just took him a little bit more time to figure it out. Lincoln Kienholz has been at Ohio State longer than the other two quarterbacks that he's competing with to be the starting quarterback. And maybe his skill set is going to translate right now to him winning the QB battle. Maybe it won't. Maybe if he loses it, it's not because he hasn't gotten better and he's not tough or he's not a leader. Maybe somebody else is just better and he loses it because he gets beat out by a better talent. Going from high school to college is a steep jump. I don't care if you're going to NAIA, to JUCO, or to Ohio State. It's tough. The speed of the game is a whole lot different. The ability you're forced to read pre-snap and post-snap, that's difficult. There are so many different things that are very difficult for a 19 or 20 or 21-year-old young man to be able to translate and to figure out quickly. Man, it's hard to play college football. I mean, we watch it all the time, and we watch Ohio State play, and some of those guys make it seem very, very easy. But if you're out there watching them, let's say you're just in the stands, it's a little bit different than watching it on TV. You get a greater appreciation for the athlete and the athleticism of every guy out there on the field. And then if you get to go to practice, or let's say you get to sit on the sidelines during a game and get an up-close and personal view of these guys while they're playing football, you're going to gain a greater appreciation for what they do. The speed, their ability to be able to process, their ability to be able to read and react as fast as they do. You're going to get a greater appreciation for all of that. And for all three of these quarterbacks, the toughness part, there's multiple layers to it. The leadership part, there's multiple layers to it. It's on the field and off the field. Let's say you're good on the football field, but you slack in the classroom. That's the kind of leadership that a guy who's all about ball is about. But there might be somebody on the team saying, hey, man, you didn't even show up for this test. Why should I follow you on the football field when you won't take care of everything on and off the field? All of this stuff is very, very important. Ryan Day wants a leader on and off the field, a guy that's great on the field as far as being a leader and great in the community representing The Ohio State University, the mental toughness, the physical toughness. Don't go hard on the football field and then slack off in the weight room. Also, don't go hard in the weight room and then slack off on the football field. Put it all together. Kill it in every single area so that at the end of the day, there is no question. People can't question your toughness or your leadership because you showcased it all spring long. And it's just a continuation of you showcasing those two qualities that are very, very important for Ryan Day when he's trying to figure out who the starting quarterback is going to be. While Ryan Day is trying to figure out who the starting quarterback is going to be, Ryan Day realizes this isn't a one-man or two-man race. It's a three-man race, and I'll tell you why next. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds. It can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get 200,000 bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. As many people out there are proclaiming, there's already one guy that's head and shoulders above the rest, and that guy is the clear-cut guy that's going to hold the title of QB1 in the fall. Julian Sayin is being propped up by a lot of guys out there and is getting a lot of praise, like James Peoples was during the NFL Combine, and he deserves it. Really talented young man, known for being an accurate passer. He can sling that rock. He can process at a high level. I mean, the qualities that he had coming into college, those things, I believe, are things that the older guys were seeing his first couple of days in practice, and they realized, oh, this guy has an opportunity to be one of those dudes at Ohio State. But at the same time, while he is a guy that's getting a lot of attention, it's well-deserved, there's still a long way to go in regards to the quarterback competition. And you can't count out Lincoln Kienholz or even Tavian St. Clair, because all three of these guys are highly sought-after quarterbacks when they were in high school. They're now in college. They all possess different skill sets. One has the ready-made size to start this year. Tavian St. Clair, he is the youngest, but he is the most physically ready to play. Lincoln Kienholz is the most athletic. Sayin is known for his passing, his accuracy, his processing. All three of these guys do a lot of things at a high level. They all do some different things than the others, which makes this whole competition really intense. It's going to be fun to follow all spring long. And only one guy can hold the title. I am not a fan. I'll say this now because I know there's a lot of new listeners to this show. Jay Stevens is not a fan of a two-quarterback system. I never have been. I don't think I'll ever change my mind with that. Two quarterback systems don't work. I remember when I was a kid and I was watching the Buffalo Bills. It was Doug Flutie, and I forget who his running mate was, but the Bills were in a two-quarterback system. Doug Flutie, about 5'8". The other quarterback was a normal height of a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And one thing I realized was, as a kid, it was cool. You could try to predict when the other guy would come in and one guy would get pulled, and you could see, oh, this guy does something a little bit different than the other guy. And it was really hard for the defense to get a handle on what quarterback was going to do what and how they were going to slow the offense down because it was just different. Now, in college, sometimes you may see a two-quarterback system. I know Urban Meyer used the Chris Leak, Tim Tebow thing, but Tim Tebow wasn't truly a quarterback at that time. He did play quarterback, but he was more of like your wildcat or running quarterback. And while it worked for Urban Meyer at that time, I still don't think it was the right move. I mean, it worked. So I can't say it was the right move. I just wouldn't have gone that route. I wouldn't have. Now, when there's a transfer portal that guys can enter and then go to a new school right away, some coaches are going to be enticed to potentially play a guy earlier than he should be on the field because you're afraid of him going to the portal. That's real. That's the reality. But also, here's also another reality. In 2015, Ohio State used a two-quarterback system. It didn't work. Now, that wasn't why the season went the way that it did. There's some other things that happened that year with the coaching and sometimes not being on the same page that really resulted in that loss that day against Michigan State. But that wasn't the first time there were clunky calls and confusing decisions that were made. That wasn't the first time that happened, but in that year, JT Barrett's coming off an injury in 2014. Cardale Jones had a phenomenal 3-game run in the Big Ten Championship and then the 2 CFP games. So there was a reason why Ohio State may have wanted to use a two-quarterback system, but ultimately, it didn't take long to realize Cardale Jones should not have been starting. Now, I don't know the health of JT Barrett. I know that he was playing and coming back on the field, off the field, on the field, off the field. But the two-quarterback system didn't work. I don't think Cardale Jones should have started as often as he did. But of course, hindsight's 2020. But even in the moment, many of us were saying the same thing. JT Barrett's still better. Why is he not playing more? Who knows? Those are coaching decisions that didn't work then, and we have a better clarity of them now that they truly didn't work. This is a three-man race. And Ryan Day shouldn't be a coach that's going out here and trying to make a kid happy or trying to keep the parents on his side. You decide who the best quarterback is and let the decision ride. Now, if all of a sudden that guy gets hurt and somebody else comes out and plays out of their mind and plays so well that they're playing better than the original starter, that's different than you using two quarterbacks. If somebody gets hurt and then your backup comes in and plays very, very well but doesn't play better than the original starter, once the original starter gets healthy, you put the guy back in. For Tavian St. Clair, I think he is a massive wild card and is going to push St. Clair and it's going to push Kienholz and Sayin, got the wrong S in my brain at the time. He's going to push those guys. Absolutely. He is a hungry athlete. He is eager to get back on the football field and to throw to his new teammates and to showcase his skill set in front of everybody throughout the 15 spring practices this year. Here's the thing, though. While he's going to push him and he's the wild card, I think Kienholz's athleticism might be something Brian Hartline might want to tap into. I understand the accuracy and the processing of Sayin. But let's just say that a more athletic quarterback fits what Hartline wants better, and Hartline is looking more for a style than a certain athletic style in a quarterback. That may be something to look at. But at the end of the day, toughness, leadership, you also got to be able to make the throws, the out routes, the comebacks, the quick screens, the swing passes, the post, corners, all the throws. You must be able to make the short, intermediate, and deep throws, the ones behind the line of scrimmage. You must be able to read pre-snap and post-snap. There are a lot of things that go into being a starting quarterback at Ohio State. And like I said, it was a long way to go. I truly mean that because it is a long way to go. Nobody is going to be earning the title of QB1 during spring practice. But all three of these guys have a legitimate shot to earn that title. Ryan Day's not just sitting here trying to hand it over to somebody and say, I know you're new and I know you're the new toy, but ultimately I'm going to hand it over to somebody else for these reasons. Well, if you're going to hand it to somebody else for these reasons, you might potentially make the wrong decision. No, look in totality. Get your pen, get your paper, and make sure that whenever you start taking notes down here on the notepad, that you're not trying to do it with the bias. You're trying to make sure your analysis is the right analysis. Go back and check things on the film, and maybe in the moment you see something, and then afterwards you see that and some. And when you see the extra, you're like, oh, I got the right thing, but there's more notes here, positive, negative, or maybe just right there in the middle where you're trying to wait and see what else happens. They're going to track every throw, track every decision, track every read. I mean, they're going to track everything to make sure they get the right guy of all three of these quarterbacks. Not just one, not just two, but all three. And Ryan Day has done something very interesting. It's a little bit different, but Ryan Day at times will have your third-string quarterback or your incoming freshman. I'm putting him in that role now. He'll be with the ones at times. You put your starting quarterback with the threes, and your middle guy will bounce up and down all three units. Why? Because they want to see how you handle with different guys. A different offensive line, a different running back. How do you adjust from handing the ball off to James Peoples to Bo Jackson? How do you adjust to throwing the ball to Jeremiah Smith to a Quincy Porter? How do you adjust to throwing the ball to a Max Clair and then to a Will Merritt? How do you adjust to these things? Because those adjustments, how do you read versus starting defense versus the third string or the backups? How do you read? How do you figure all these things out? All those questions and then some are things that Ryan Day is trying to figure out while trying to evaluate all three of these guys because this is truly a three-man race. A three-man race that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This spring, it's going to be fun to watch in the summer and in the fall and all the way up until Ryan Day announced a starting quarterback. And then we're going to analyze that starting quarterback and predict what he's going to do when he steps on the field as a full-time starter for Ohio State in the fall. Man, that was fun. It's also going to be fun the rest of the show as you guys submitted questions on a Mailbag Friday. I'm going to answer all your questions next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now, I budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thank y'all for tapping the Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. Thank all of you that have submitted questions on a Mailbag Friday. These questions were submitted via a post on the Locked On Buckeyes community page. We make that post every Thursday morning. You submit your questions. We answer them right here on a Friday. We are also going to answer a couple questions that came in after last week's mailbag was recorded. So Rightful12597 on the YouTube, he asked a couple questions. Here's one of them. Ryan Day seems to have tapped into his inner Nick Saban when building his new staff, and I'm here for it. What are your thoughts on the new coaches, analysts, etc.? In totality, Ryan Day is getting a lot of things right. We can't grade those hires yet because games haven't been played, but in the short period that Ryan Day has made these hires, we have had some time to digest them. I think thinking outside of the box has worked for Ryan Day. And I think it's going to work. It has a thought in me that it's going to work once again. On offense, first-time play caller. Yes, Brian Hartline. But he's been at Ohio State for a long time. He was offensive coordinator once, then co-OC, and then back to being the offensive coordinator. Now with the role of calling plays. He's paid his dues. He's grinded. He's one of the most well-respected position coaches in all of college football. Now he's going to have a handle on the entire offense. Will there be new wrinkles? What has he learned from Chip Kelly? I think that time with Chip Kelly there at Ohio State is big. On the defensive side of the ball, thinking outside of the box with Matt Patricia, even on offense, thinking outside of the box with bringing in Tyler Bowen. Those were great moves. But also when it comes to Ryan Day on defense, I think the pairing of Tim Walton and Matt Patricia is going to be a sneaky good move. Because those two guys worked together when they were at Syracuse about 20-plus years ago. Now, it's been a long time since then. But their time coaching in the NFL, their time being at Ohio State, now, once again, being together, that's going to be very, very big for that side of the ball moving forward. So I think on the surface, in the short time since between now and the time that he's made these hires, good job, Ryan Day. Thinking outside the box is great. Doing some things that the elite coaches do in building a staff, that's huge. The other question is, also with all the changeover with players and coaches both exiting after we climb the mountain, what does a successful season next year look like to you? Outside of beating the team up north. And if you take that out of it, I think for Ohio State next season, an 11-1 regular season is successful. Going undefeated is so hard. And I am never one that says perfection in a regular season is demanded every single year. No. Losses are going to happen. They're going to. Ryan Day has never had an undefeated entire season. The 2 seasons he was undefeated in the regular season, 2019 and 2020. Outside of that, there's been at least one loss every regular season, sometimes twice. So I don't hold anybody to that standard of saying perfection. No. I do see a loss in the upcoming year. Now, in regards to the playoff, the Buckeyes got to make the playoff. Got to. You can't lose a playoff game, lose your first playoff game. No matter if you play in the first round or if you get a bye. Doesn't matter. You don't lose your first playoff game. Get to the Final Four, and that's where I sit. So get to the Final Four in the playoff, 11-1 regular season. I'm cool with that. I'm not a natty or bust guy. I am not. However, I do think for Ohio State, they do have an opportunity to run it back, which is huge. Next question comes from, let me get to the right screen. This one comes from Carla R.E. Jenkins on the YouTube. Also, Carla tags us and tweets at us all the time on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. The question is this: which 3 to 5 OSU players are you most likely looking forward to stand out during the 2025 spring game? Thanks for this mailbag opportunity, Carla. Always thank you for your tweets and thank you for this question. 3 to 5 OSU players I am most looking forward to stand out during spring practice. I got a list, and I'm taking all the quarterbacks out of it just because I decided to make that decision for this question. Number 1 is Kenyatta Jackson Jr. It's his time to shine. And I think Larry Johnson pushing him to be a bigger leader, understanding that this guy has what it takes to fill the shoes of Jack Sawyer and Jalen Tuimoloau, and realizing that this is a guy that can play in the National Football League. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. This is in no particular order either. I'm not trying to say order for anything. I am looking for him to shine. Aaron Scott Jr. is the other one. Now, he kind of gets looked over because of Dave Snigmanosin or Jermaine Matthews Jr. or even Devin Sanchez. Everybody wants to look at the shiny new toy. Don't forget about Aaron Scott Jr. I believe there is a path for Aaron Scott Jr. to play a lot next year and potentially start. There's a scenario where they might bump Igman Olsen or Jermaine Matthews Jr. to nickel at times to play Aaron Scott Jr. on the outside. I believe his time at Ohio State, he has grown, he has developed. You have seen growth. He's out there on the field, and I believe he is a guy that I do think he's going to stand out during spring practice. Another one is a current guy that I don't think it's going to start, but he's on the verge of moving into the starting 5 on the offensive line, is Josh Padilla. Because I do see a scenario where Carson Isman goes to left guard, Luke Montgomery goes to right guard, Josh Padilla is the starting center. I think that's realistic. And the nastiness he plays with, and you saw that was a Tennessee game maybe, where he's just doing all the dirty work and doing everything right. I think Josh Padilla is a guy that could do what is needed for him to emerge into that starting lineup. Now, it's in the spring practice. This is not the only time that he has to do this. It has to be continued throughout the summer and in the fall. But Josh Padilla is a guy I'm looking forward to. Last but not least, well, 2 more. Not last but not least, going to couple these together. C.J. Donaldson and Mylan Graham. Mylan Graham's about to embark upon his first full offseason because he was a midsummer enrollee last year after he finished his senior year of playing football and all the sports there that he played at New Haven High School. I think Mylan Graham is going to rival with Bryson Rogers to be that 4th receiver at Ohio State. And if not, Ohio State could have a 5-receiver rotation with Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, and Mylan Graham as well. I firmly think that Mylan Graham has a great opportunity to play for Ohio State this year and could be in the return game too. C.J. Donaldson, let's not forget him. The transfer from West Virginia has about 2,000 rushing yards throughout his entire career at West Virginia for those 3 years. He is someone. While I do think this is going to be a big year for James Peebles to step up and to have a bigger role, I don't know if you could cement him and put it down in pen that Peebles is going to start because Donaldson is good. Donaldson has what it takes. He has a proven track record of being a guy that can be an every down player. Now, granted, you may try to use him there as a bruiser and a short yardage guy, great. But if I know Carlos Loughlin, you're not bringing him in just to be a short yardage back. You're bringing him in to play in the regular rotation, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd downs. And I think Donaldson can push Peebles to be a great, great back. But I think Donaldson could be a great back too. Last but not least, the last question comes in on the YouTube once again. This one comes from Richard Smith -V8V. Thanks for the question as well. Last question of the day. Are we going to be more consistent with breakout plays on special teams this year? Richard, I don't know. You would hope so. You would love a yes or no. My thought is leaning more than normal. And I'm not even saying breakout players are going to be blocked, like return touchdowns for the kickoff or the punt. I do see a scenario where Ohio State can be more aggressive in the field goal blocking or the punt blocking area. I do see a scenario, even more so than they were last year. I do see a scenario where that can happen. I think field goal blocking is a weird one because some guys want to go be more aggressive, and some coaches say no, don't get a penalty because of an accidental 15-yard penalty could lead to a touchdown. So I understand that part, but you saw that aggressiveness on the punt block team or the punt return team, and it worked out very, very well. I want to see that translate over to the block field goal team, field goal block. My words are not working at the end of today's show. I don't know. My first thought is similar to that last year, but do I think there'll be more? It's hard to say yes or no right now. And also, the breakouts, I would love to say Ohio State's going to have a kickoff and a punt return next year for a touchdown. But in our history, especially recent history of watching Ohio State football, that hasn't been the case. The guys to do that are on the team. They were on the team last year. For some reason, they decided to put guys back to return kickoffs and punts that shouldn't be back there. I hope that trend doesn't continue next year, but it's possible that it does. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes right here on a Friday. And making this show your first listen today. For a second listen, check out Locked on College Basketball with Andy Patton and Isaac Shade. Those are the two men that are preparing to prepare you for the March Madness run in the NC2A tournament. They're going to be breaking down all the games and the conference tournament games and getting you ready to have a perfect bracket. Trust me, those are the guys to talk to about that. You can follow Locked on College Basketball and Locked on Buckeyes on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a Friday. We'll see you next time.